Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving.
I don't wanna take advice from fools.
You always won every time you placed a bet.
Money, that's what I want.
Welcome to the OffshoreInsiders.com simulcast. You know, in previous years, I've done it mostly my score phone style, way back in the score phone days, short form, with a lot of news and notes and injuries and even ATS trends. But I told you that this year, wanted to do some more long form, where we're going to have various sports betting experts on to discuss whatever the situation is. And I'm very happy to welcome Scott Cooley from BetDSI. BetDSI is one of only about a half dozen sports books that I unequivocally recommend on OffshoreInsiders.com. You'll never have a problem getting a withdrawal there. Very easy to make a deposit there. One of the most universally respected sports books out there. And one of my favorite things at BetDSI, especially if you're a fantasy football player who likes to bet, they've got a lot of interesting props. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You can see it on your screen on the BetDSI page. Of course, we have a lot of highly touted rookie quarterbacks. Will they win a starting position, and how many games they can play? And a couple of the props they have, you can see Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen with their respective over-unders. Started out with Josh Allen. One of the things we got to take into consideration not only is how good of a quarterback do we think these guys are going to be in the rookie year, but of course, what the competition is. In the case of Josh Allen, Nathan Peterman and A.J. McCarron, not a lot of competition there. I'm not really a big fan of Josh Allen, to be perfectly honest with you, but because it is clearly his starting job to win or lose, maybe I would lean towards the over still. I think Josh Allen's a guy who he had a very low completion rate in college, especially for a guy drafted so high. I think he's going to eventually lose the job. I would lean a little bit towards the under there. But, Scott, tell me what went into the thinking setting the Josh Allen over-under at 8.5.
Yeah, sure, Joe. Certainly we were very kind of hesitant to put anything really high on this. And I think initially when it opened on our prop board, we had Josh Allen at 4.5 or 5.5, actually. But certainly once A.J. McCarron's injury occurred during the preseason, he's going to be shelved for quite some time. So that left Nathan Peterman and Allen as the battling out for the starting spot. So at that point, we immediately bumped it up. Certainly, I think many people are expecting Allen to start right out of the gate to get him some real game experience. And we don't put a lot of, investment into watching how they do in the preseason, what that means, because, I know the talking heads, have to talk about something, but preseason is largely meaningless in the eyes of the odds makers, for everyone, not just the rookies. But, I think that at this point, we're seeing action on the under. To your point, Joe, that I think that some people are expecting him to start, kind of get thrown to the wolves. Nobody's expecting this Bills team to be good. It's the offensive line is just horrendous. Allen's going to be under, if he does start, he's going to be under a lot of pressure early. Who knows how long he may make it in the season without getting hurt. But I think the consensus is that once McCarron is ready to go and recovered from his shoulder injury, that he'll step back in the starting spot. Certainly, we've got the public, the square bettors, taking the over on this. They think he's going to be there for all 16 games. And then the sharper bettors are nabbing the under.
All right. Well, as you can see, I said I would lean towards the under, and I usually am a sharper bettor. Baker Mayfield, another one of the more interesting ones. You have the over-under there at 4.5. He's the one who has arguably the most competition. We'll talk about Josh Rosen. He does as well. But Baker Mayfield, of course, will be playing behind Tyrod Taylor, who's an established starter. And Tyrod Taylor can certainly keep the seat warm. The truth is, Baker Mayfield has a little bit more of the upside. They didn't draft him to sit on the bench, but at the same time, as I said, they have the perfect guy to keep the seat warm. And then again, they wouldn't have, you could say conversely, they wouldn't have gone out and gotten an experienced quarterback in Tyrod Taylor if they weren't planning on maybe breaking in Baker Mayfield slowly. The truth is, you got a coach who's got a 1-33 straight up record. So if he's gotten this far, clearly they're going to let Hugh Jackson go through the rebuild process. So there's no urgency for him to win. I would lean towards the over because I think that Cleveland can look towards the future. And I know, kind of as a side note, it's my understanding that at least at a lot of sports books, and I don't know if this is the case at BetDSI, but the public seems to be liking to bet Cleveland over the total in the number of wins, and there are even a lot of people have them as the dark horse to win the Super Bowl. That's what I've heard about some of the other sports books. Is that the case at BetDSI as well?
Not so much. I mean, we certainly take our fair share of $5 and $10 bets from the public bettors that have some want some long odds and some hopefuls and something to root for all season. We have seen some sharp action on both sides of the Browns. It's pretty balanced as far as their season win total. Some are taking the over, some are taking the under, but it's not like it's the media really is, especially with Hard Knocks covering the Browns. It's really easy to get caught up in the hype and the pomp and the fluff, but in the odds making business, there is no such thing as hype. So you have to keep a level head and really not listen to what those media types say. As far as Baker Mayfield, we feel like Hugh Jackson has been very very poignant as Tyrod Taylor is my starter. He's going to be my starter. I fully expect to see him starting throughout the season, especially maybe the first 8 to 10 weeks. If the Browns get off to a 2-8 start, or 2-9, or they haven't really won any games, I think there will be some pressure from upper management and stuff to get Mayfield in and get him some reps. But I actually think that this would be more of a play to under for me. I think that if the Browns are competitive, like some people are expecting them to be, I think we could see Mayfield sit on the bench the entire first season, just because of Hugh Jackson's commitment to Rod Taylor at this point.
And that's actually been saying, it's funny, you brought up the Hard Knocks thing. I saw a stat somewhere, and I don't have software that can specifically measure this, but it says that for the most part, teams that are on Hard Knocks are great go-against bets because they are overvalued. They get so much exposure, and, who knows, maybe even in the training camp there are some things they don't want to discuss because of the Hard Knocks. But do you find that when it comes to the games during the regular season that maybe the public is betting on the Hard Knocks team and maybe the sharps are betting against them?
Yeah, I think that just kind of translates through all kinds of media attention. Whenever there's a lot of excitement, maybe one of these rookies plays really well, 1 week, the very next week, the public is going to be on that rookie, and you may see even a little bit of a line adjustment and an intentional inflated line from the odds makers. That because they understand that they're going to get that public money, just like we have public teams, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Patriots, where their spreads are always a little bit inflated. But you can't do it too much because the sharps are on their side just ready to pounce on a bad number. And
certainly talking about media teams, there's not a bigger media team than the New York Jets. And Sam Darnold, I've gone on record as saying that I think he's going to be a bust, but with the Teddy Bridgewater trade, he's now been announced he will be the Game 1 starter, at least according to most reports. This is probably the toughest one for me because as somebody, like I said, I think Darnold's going to be a cataclysmic bust. I think he's another Matt Stafford, and I know that some people are still big believers in Matt Stafford, Jay Cutler. He's one of these guys where his talent always exceeds his production. I'm more about production. I saw Darnold make a ton of mistakes last year, but the job is clearly his to lose. The over-under's at 6.5, so, before the trade, I might lean towards saying the under, although I think most people did expect Teddy Bridgewater to get traded. I think Bridgewater is going to be the better quarterback not only this year, but long term. But Sam Darnold at 6.5, I think it's clearly his job to win or lose, and in fact, I know that you have a prop about will any quarterback throw, I think it's 22 or more interceptions this year. if I had to bet on who's likely to throw the most interceptions this year, it's Sam Darnold, because I think they're going to stick with him. But he makes a ton of mistakes. I think he's a feast or famine quarterback. But especially after the trade yesterday, where it does appear that Darnold is most likely the number one quarterback, I like the over here. But tell me about what the thinking went into setting the total at 6.5 and now juiced at minus 130.
Yes, and I agree with your sentiments there, Joe. I think that this looks like a good over bet. We never know based on what might happen with injuries and that kind of stuff. But certainly the bettors are reacting that way. They're taking the over, especially since Bridgewater was traded long, and so I think that. And you're right about the interceptions total. Darnold could, could be a Peyton Manning, not to compare him to Peyton Manning, but a Peyton Manning like season where he throws 30 interceptions in his rookie campaign. However, what I look towards here is the head coach. Todd Bowles is such an old school mentality type of head coach, and I really wonder if the Jets get off to they have a decent team, but if they get off to a tough start where, again, they're 1-5, 2-7, that kind of thing, and Darnold's just throwing picks all over the place and he's really struggling, I could see Bowles coming in and saying, hey, look, I'm going to go with McCall, I'm going to go with the veteran, because we don't want to ruin this kid's psyche in year one. We don't want to just keep allowing him to fail over and over again. That would be the only caveat I had for this, but I certainly think the over is probably a prudent play.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the Todd Bowles, he obviously won himself a lot of job security last year. I was on a guest on a podcast and video with the big man on campus over at SBR, and I respect his opinion a lot, but I remember he was telling me that he had bet on last year, one of his biggest off-season bets was that there would at least be one team that would go 0-16. He thought the Jets were guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but he thought the Jets were definitely going to go 0-16, and we saw that they had that great year last year, surprised a lot of people. So, yeah, Bowles definitely can be very patient this year off of his successes as last year, and I definitely agree with you. He's an old school guy, so you kind of sold me how, yeah, maybe the under might not be too bad of a bet after all. Probably, though, my favorite bet of all these, Josh Rosen, total starts 4.5, although over is minus 160. So, I don't like betting the juice, and I got a news alert for you. Sam Bradford's going to get hurt, and he's probably going to get hurt game 3, game 4. So, and I'm a big Josh Rosen fan. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb. I've probably said it publicly before, but I'm going to say it here. I think he's going to be the best quarterback of this draft. I love guys that get the ball out quickly to their playmakers, and that's what Josh Rosen does. And, because he obviously threw the ball a lot in college, I think he's maybe even a little bit more ready for the NFL. Not that the other guys haven't, but, of course, UCLA used to throw the ball all the time there. I like this over, like I said, because you're basically betting on will Sam Bradford get hurt, and how quickly will he get hurt. And as much as I hate to ever root for a guy to get injured, he's going to get injured. I like this game over, or I like this bet over. But then again, you put a tempting over under 4.5. But I always tell my clients at offshoreinsiders.com, you got to be aware of that juice. So it is heavily juiced. So maybe you are trying to sucker us into it there, Scott Cooley from BetDSI.
Yes, yeah, I think that was the case, and honestly, I really wish we would open this a tick or two higher at 5.5, 6.5. I actually think it's up to 5 or so with juice on the over now as well. So people have certainly rallied around the Sam Bradford angle, which he can't step out of the car without getting injured. So I think that especially, and also given the team, we're all anticipating the Arizona Cardinals to kind of be at the bottom of the division this year. That division's gotten so good, and I think we're going to see a changing of the guard pretty quickly. Whether by injury or just by, hey, you know what, we're going to. We're gonna switch it. This is our quarterback of the future. Obviously, Sam Bradford is not their quarterback of the future. So I think and certainly we have seen smart money, respectable money, take the over on this prop. And we'll see how Josh Rosen pans out. I'm not sure how really any of these guys pan out, but certainly they're gonna if David Johnson's there and healthy, healthy, if he does come to start, he's going to be able to kind of showcase his skills, because the opponents are going to stack the box. They're going to put 8-9 people in there to stop the run game and make Josh Rosen beat them.
Yeah, there is one I'm trying to find that I was panning there on the BetDSI site. And if I'm not mistaken, there we go. I think I found it here in my notes. One of them, and as much as I don't like to lay the juice, will Andrew Luck miss at least one game during the regular season? Again, I hate to root for injuries, but as much as I don't like to lay the lumber, minus 250 looks pretty tempting. And the truth is, even let's say the other extreme happens, that he becomes the comeback player of the century, and he's the league MVP. If somehow Indianapolis, if they're in position entering week 16, or actually I guess it would technically be week 17, and they already have a playoff spot clinched, there's no way he's going to play. So I say either extreme. In the most likely event that Andrew Luck does miss a game because of an injury, it wins. And if he turns out he's spectacular and healthy, and they're in a position where in the final week of the season they can rest him, I think he would be in civvies in the final game of the year. So as much as I don't like to lay 250, it's kind of like having a favorite in a horse race. When I looked over some of your props, that's probably the one I like most, and even though I'm allergic to chalk, Andrew Luck. But tell me about the thinking behind having what I think is still relatively low juice there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like, unfortunately, I hope we're not singing the same song for Andrew Luck as we have been for Sam Bradford in 4 or 5 years. Andrew Luck is just an immense talent. I think he's a great ambassador for the league, and really really good for the game of football. A really really quality person on and off the field. I know him personally, so I'm always rooting for Andrew, but. These injury bugs, they for whatever reason on some players, they keep biting, and we all are sitting back and looking at this skeptically, because how many times have we heard, oh, Andrew Luck will be ready, or Andrew Luck is warming up, and he's going to play this year, and then we go an entire season and we don't see him. So that stigma is already stuck in our mind that this guy is injury prone, and he probably can't last a season. So we definitely wanted to keep the juice high on that. Maybe not to ward off, somebody like yourself, Joe, but we wanted to try to attract people money on the no.
And I'll tell you one guy that I'm a full believer in, and at least in this case I get to root against an injury, Deshaun Watson. I would take just about any over on him. I think this guy is the real deal. He's a superstar. Of course, we're talking about a guy coming back from an injury. And then again, if you want me to list guys who had spectacular rookie years at quarterback and then were disappointments in their next year, that list is long, and these are guys that stayed healthy. So there are definitely some question marks there, but I think I would take all of his overs, personally, if he remains healthy. The guy's an absolute stud, and I agree with you. You don't want to look too much into preseason performance, but the fact that coming off an injury, he kind of looked like, that he was his old self. That's pretty impressive. So, at BetDSI, I would take a long look at all those overs. Well, Scott Cooley, tell me what other ones, I mentioned some of the ones that grabbed my eyes, but what are some of the ones that the public is liking to bet on, and is there a big difference between, and I guess you obviously have very low limits here, so it's probably a little bit tougher to measure sharp money, big money, but are there any props that you have where it looks like maybe the public loves it one way, but some of the guys that are more sharp are liking it another way?
Yeah, certainly. We're seeing, obviously Aaron Rodgers is, the most polarizing quarterback in the league, and the public's always going to bet on the Packers. They're always going to bet on Aaron Rodgers. So we've taken, basically 90% square money on his passing TDs totals and his passing yards total. Sharps is not the same story. We've actually taken a lot of smart, respected action on the unders for Rodgers, more so his passing yards than anything, and maybe they're looking at is this may be we're still going to see the kind of same offense, Mike McCarthy, air it out, but I think that there's a good chance that, we're going to see a little bit more of a conservative approach from this Packers team. Aaron Rodgers just got signed an extension. They may not want this guy dropping back, 50 times a game and slinging around 50 times a game. So I think that's just a little bit of product of the perception from the smarts, from the pro bettors that this Packers offense, if they can play it right and do it right, and they've got a few more pieces on defense, that maybe they can build leads and then kind of sit on them.
I did read somewhere where, and I can't even keep track of which quarterbacks have which injuries, but I guess it's always safe to say an ACL. But the last time that Rodgers did have this type of injury, he bounced back with an MVP season. Look, Aaron Rodgers is truly Superman. So this might be one case where I'd lean more towards the square money than the sharp money. But then again, we're really betting on more on whether or not he can be healthy rather than how good is he. But you're right. He doesn't have a great offensive line. He doesn't have tons of weapons. Scott Cooley at BetDSI. How about I said these are kind of like the fantasy props in addition, all the normal stuff where you can bet the sides and totals on a weekly basis. What type of things can the fantasy player and the guys who like to, and the guys and girls who like to bet the prop bets, what type of thing are we going to have on a weekly basis at BetDSI?
Yes, certainly our proposition offerings are something we really hang our hat on. We really try to offer the largest amount of props, and for game to game stuff, we're gonna have props for the main players. We'll also be creating head to head kind of fantasy matchup props in a sense, where they may get Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers minus 2.5 fantasy points. So we'll be offering those things. And then we're hopeful to roll out a new prop platform that allows you to actually create your own prop bet. So if you want to bet on Aaron Rodgers over 320 passing yards in a particular game, you can put that in, and we provide what odds we'll give you on that. If you want to drop it to 315 passing yards, obviously the odds get worse. If you want to go higher, the odds get better. So that's a really unique feature of our new website that we're preparing to have for the start of football season.
And actually, Scott, can you clarify? Is it betdsi.eu? Is that the URL that you prefer?
Yes, that's the main platform, but people can access it through betdsi.com as well.
All right, yeah, I thought I did say betdsi.com, because I'm glad. Well, how about on social media? Where can they follow BetDSI?
It's at BetDSI is the Twitter handle, and we're pretty active on there. We would encourage all questions and followers, and we're expecting to do a lot of informational tweets there as far as action reports and where the smart money's coming in, where the square money, that kind of thing.
All right, like I said, at offshoreinsiders.com, only have about a half dozen sports books there. BetDSI is definitely among the best, and I agree with Scott. And look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not really the fantasy football type guy. My handicapping is a lot of analytics and systems. So even though the fantasy football isn't really kind of my thing, there is no question about it. If you're a fantasy football player and a gambler, you're going to love BetDSI. And if you're really sharp about the fantasy football matchups and which quarterback is going to have a bad week, which wide receiver, BetDSI is definitely as good as it gets. Well, Scott Cooley from BetDSI.com or .eu, whichever one you prefer. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully we will do this again.